Politeness in America is basically just a highly competitive sport of passive aggression. We smile while insulting you, we apologize to inanimate objects, and we think complaining over a bad meal is our civic duty. Forget everything you thought you knew about etiquette. We are breaking down 50 polite American habits that are actually just deeply annoying and illogical. 1. There is a special place in social purgatory for people who leave 3-minute rambling voicemails. Americans actually believe they are doing you a massive personal favor by doing this. In their minds, it is a thorough update. In your reality, they just handed you a mandatory audio homework assignment. Now you are legally obligated to listen to a full 60 seconds of them breathing heavily and looking for their car keys, all just to find out they are running late. Just send a 7-word text message, Susan. We are not living in 1998 anymore. 2. Picture this. You blindly step directly into oncoming traffic, forcing a terrified driver in a 2-ton SUV to slam on their brakes and spill hot coffee everywhere. Instead of a deep, heartfelt apology for almost causing a vehicular homicide, you just toss up a tiny, sheepish little wave. It is a completely baffling American reflex. We genuinely believe this microscopic, polite hand gesture magically erases the fact that we just broke the law and gave a stranger a minor heart attack. Risking death is apparently totally fine, provided you look slightly apologetic while doing it. 3. Nothing strikes raw, icy terror into the heart of an American adult quite like the phrase, "Let's go around the room and share a fun fact." Corporate management treats this forced public confession as peak workplace politeness. Yet, it has never actually produced a single fun fact in human history. Instead, perfectly normal people panic and end up revealing weird childhood traumas, uncomfortable medical quirks, or the fact that they collect toe rings. It holds the entire conference room hostage in a state of sheer, unbearable cringe, all under the disguise of team building. 4. Let us talk about the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card for massive jerks, prefacing a soul-crushing insult with, "No offense, but..." Americans treat these 3 little words like a magical, invisible shield that grants absolute immunity from social consequences. It is absolutely not a form of honesty or good manners. It is just a highly transparent, incredibly cheap trick to dodge the fallout of your own extreme rudeness. Slapping a polite little warning label onto a verbal punch in the face does not actually make the punch hurt any less. You are just being mean with a preamble. 5. If someone looks you dead in the eyes and says, "With all due respect," you should probably brace for impact. In the entire recorded history of the English language, this phrase has never once been followed by anything remotely respectful. It is essentially the business casual version of throwing a brick through a window. It acts as a formal, socially acceptable warning shot, politely announcing that the speaker is about to absolutely verbally destroy you. Wrapping a massive insult in a ridiculously thin layer of fake civility is peak American etiquette at its most unhinged. 6. Have you ever forgotten an acquaintance's name and immediately launched into an Oscar-worthy theatrical apology? You gasp, grab your chest, and loudly declare you are the absolute worst human being alive. This dramatic display of extreme guilt is not actually about you being genuinely sorry. It is a highly calculated manipulation tactic. You are essentially forcing the other person into an incredibly awkward position where they have to comfort you. They are now legally obligated to say, "Oh no, it is totally fine that you completely forgot I existed." It is purely selfish drama disguised as manners. 7. Slapping a brilliantly colored "My Child is an honor student" bumper sticker on the back of a minivan is an aggressive American tradition. People honestly think this is a sweet, polite display of parental pride. Let us be real. The kid cannot even legally drive and definitely does not care about your rear bumper. This is nothing more than a high-speed, passive-aggressive trophy. It is a rolling declaration of genetic superiority aimed squarely at every miserable, exhausted driver stuck behind you in heavy traffic. You are just weaponizing your kid's math grades for road supremacy. 8. Dropping the phrase, "I will pray for you," is the absolute nuclear option for ending an uncomfortable conversation. Sure, in very specific religious circles, it might actually be sincere. But in modern America, It is frequently deployed as the ultimate socially untouchable shutdown. It is a deeply polite way of looking someone in the face and saying, "I have absolutely nothing useful to offer you, I hate this topic, and I am now outsourcing your massive life problems to a higher power." It lets you walk away feeling incredibly righteous without actually lifting a finger. 9. At some point, Americans completely destroyed the thoughtful, spontaneous romance of gift-giving and replaced it with the wedding registry. We took a beautiful gesture and turned it into a completely joyless mandatory shopping errand. When you get that invitation, it basically says, "We are gathering to celebrate our eternal magical love, and you are strictly required to purchase this exact stainless steel air fryer from Target." The charm is entirely gone. We have fully accepted that cold, ruthlessly efficient financial transactions are somehow the absolute height of matrimonial manners. It is practically a ransom note with fancy font. 10. When a normal person is 5 minutes late, they just apologize and sit down. When an American is 5 minutes late, they feel a polite obligation to deliver a breathless, 10-minute theatrical monologue. You will be forced to listen to a gripping saga about imaginary weather patterns, unlikely highway debris, and a dramatic physical reenactment of their frantic search for car keys. Nobody cares about your heroic, stressful journey against the odds, Dave. Just admit you have terrible time management skills instead of pitching the room a script for the next big Michael Bay action movie. 11. You absolutely cannot just hang up the phone in the United States. Ending a simple voice call requires a highly choreographed, exhausting 5-step verbal dismount. First comes the drawn-out "all right," immediately followed by the transitional "well." Then you hit them with an "okay then," a completely meaningless "talk soon," and finally, the actual goodbye. It is the vocal equivalent of the legendary Midwest goodbye. We will gladly participate in this ridiculous ritual of slowly, awkwardly backing away from a conversation just because we have a deep, psychological terror of an abrupt ending making us look rude. 12. The customer is always right has to be the most destructive polite mantra ever created. What originally started as a simple, harmless business policy has horribly mutated into a fully loaded weapon for retail terrorism. Americans treat this phrase like a golden ticket that grants absolute permission to be completely irrational. People will scream at a terrified teenage cashier over a coupon that expired 3 years ago, all while genuinely believing they are the righteous, polite hero of their own imaginary story. It gives awful people a socially acceptable excuse to act like total monsters. 13. In many cultures around the world, a quiet, reserved chuckle is considered the polite way to show amusement at a dinner party. In America, if your booming laughter does not startle local wildlife, shatter nearby glassware, and cause at least 3 car alarms to go off in the restaurant parking lot, people will just assume you are severely depressed. We somehow equate being deafeningly, aggressively loud with being a wonderfully polite and highly appreciative guest. If the next town over cannot hear you enjoying that joke, you are apparently just being incredibly rude to the host. 14. There is a unique type of social torture in America known as the icebreaker. Placed in a brand new group of strangers, some overly enthusiastic soul will politely suggest everyone share their spirit animal, or play 2 truths and a lie. Let's be clear, this never actually breaks any ice. It instantly flash freezes the entire room into a permanent state of pure, weapons-grade cringe. Nothing makes a grown, mortgage-paying adult feel more respected and dignified than being forced to lie about their weekend hobbies to Brenda from accounting at 9 in the morning. 15. Handing someone a wrapped present and immediately pre-apologizing for it is a masterclass in weird American etiquette. Before the paper is even torn, they will say things like, "It is just a silly little something," or "It might not be your style at all." They think this displays charming humility. In reality, it is a bizarre social trap. It forces the receiver to aggressively overcompensate with a massive flood of entirely fake, theatrical praise. You just turned a simple, nice exchange into a high-stakes performance of immense gratitude just to soothe your own weird insecurities. 16. Looking a casual acquaintance right in the eyes and uttering, "We should totally get lunch sometime," is the great American lie. This is absolutely not a genuine invitation to dine. It is a stunning verbal mirage. We use it exclusively as a polite, meaningless social placeholder to escape a dying conversation with someone we have zero intention of ever seeing again in our natural lives. The absolute craziest part is that both people know it is a complete fabrication. Yet they both smile, nod, and play along as if a restaurant reservation is actually happening. 17. Holding a public door open for someone who is entirely too far away. You genuinely think you're being a chivalrous hero, but you have actually just trapped a complete stranger in a high-pressure physical situation. Now that poor person is legally obligated to perform an awkward, breathless little jog across the hot asphalt, just so they do not look incredibly rude making you wait. Your extreme politeness just gave an innocent pedestrian unnecessary cardio and a mild panic attack. 18. Have you ever caught yourself slipping into the infamous customer service voice? It is that artificially high-pitched, bizarrely sing-song tone Americans instinctively adopt the second an automated phone system finally connects them to a real human. People deploy this polite performance as a magical signal that says, "Hello, I am a very reasonable and sweet person." Of course, they usually maintain this angelic pitch right up until the exact second they decide to make a completely unhinged, impossible demand about getting a full cash refund for a blender they bought 6 years ago. 19. Delivering a drive-by command from a total stranger to smile more is a deeply cursed American habit. Older generations absolutely love deploying this one, genuinely thinking they are spreading joy and sunshine to a grumpy world. Let's be honest, it is never a friendly suggestion. It is an incredibly weird, deeply condescending demand for a stranger to physically rearrange their facial muscles just to be more aesthetically pleasing for your personal viewing experience. Treating women on the sidewalk like uncooperative theme park animatronics is the absolute highest pinnacle of polite rudeness ever invented. 20. The ridiculous performance of politely asking a party host for just a tiny sliver of cake is exhausting. You are a grown adult, and you absolutely want a normal, human-sized piece of that chocolate dessert. But American modesty strictly demands you ask for a microscopic slice so you do not look greedy. This instantly forces the poor host to attempt to cut an architecturally impossible, paper-thin piece that instantly crumbles into a sad, messy pile of frosting on the plate. Your fake politeness just made the entire dessert experience vastly more difficult for everyone involved. 21. It never fails. The waiter magically appears out of thin air to ask how your meal is tasting at the exact microscopic second you have taken a massive, unchewable bite of a dry burger. Your mouth is totally packed, and you physically cannot speak without spraying breadcrumbs across the table. So, you are forced to do that hideous, awkward, chipmunk-cheeked closed-mouth smile while offering a desperate thumbs up. Servers in America genuinely believe this aggressive check-in is the absolute height of attentive hospitality, but really, it is a perfectly timed, highly tactical psychological ambush. 22. There is always that one guy at the dinner party who aggressively announces that he is just going to play devil's advocate for a minute. Americans view this annoying phrase as a polite, intellectual way to explore a complex issue from all possible sides. Let us be entirely clear. It is actually just a magical social loophole. It gives an exhausting person a temporary license to be a wildly argumentative contrarian about a topic that did not need debating, all while wearing a smug little smirk that screams they think they are a certified genius. 23. Forcing every single person at the Thanksgiving table to publicly declare what they are thankful for before anyone is allowed to eat is a mild form of torture. What is theoretically meant to be a sweet, heartwarming moment of reflection instantly devolves into a highly stressful public performance. It becomes a weird competition where relatives try to outdo each other with increasingly profound, tear-jerking statements, while half the table is just quietly sweating, staring at the rapidly cooling mashed potatoes and desperately wanting to consume their calories in absolute silence. It is festive peer pressure. 24. Try asking an American for a slightly inconvenient favor that they absolutely cannot do, and watch the chaos unfold. You will never, ever get a simple, polite no. Instead, you will be subjected to a sprawling 10-minute epic saga detailing their busy work schedule, a distant cousin's upcoming birthday party, and a highly fictionalized story about their neighbor's dog having a sudden vet appointment. We will literally construct a massive, complex web of obvious lies just to avoid uttering a simple two-letter word that our society treats like an unforgivable, radioactive social taboo. 25. Slapping a brightly colored $20 internet vest onto a completely feral, untrained pet and marching it right into the produce section of a grocery store is peak American entitlement. People legitimately think putting a polite, official-looking label on their bad behavior completely excuses it. This nonsense has absolutely nothing to do with genuine mental health support. It is a deeply selfish loophole created so people never have to be separated from their loudly yapping, poorly behaved chihuahua. It is aggressively exploiting a system built entirely on public kindness, just for your own personal convenience. 26. Here is a completely wild fact about American party culture. The single rudest, most offensive thing you can possibly do as a guest is actually show up on time. Arriving at the exact start time printed on the fancy invitation is viewed as a massive social crime. You will catch the frantic host completely off guard, usually while they are still angrily vacuuming the hallway in a bathrobe. To be considered a highly polite guest, you are strictly required to be fashionably late, which is a truly bizarre cultural concept where basic punctuality is severely punished. 27. You sincerely thank someone for their hard work and they immediately fire back with a chipper, upbeat, no problem. Older generations absolutely lose their minds over this phrase, but honestly, it is a brilliant, subconscious psychological power move. By casually declaring it was no problem, it subtly implies to the universe that your tiny request absolutely could have been a massive, horrible inconvenience, but they, in their infinite grace and wisdom, decided to let it slide. It might just be the most intensely passive-aggressive version of "you are welcome" ever invented by mankind. 28. Using the phrase, "excuse me," as a polite battering ram in the grocery store. Americans do not actually say it to be excused. They deploy it as a firmly worded, high-speed command to immediately move your cart away from the specific brand of mayonnaise they want. If you do not magically vanish within 2 seconds, they will let out a heavy, incredibly dramatic sigh that implies your very existence is actively ruining their entire week. It is grocery aisle road rage wrapped in a smile. 29. The so-called brutal honesty of the modern online restaurant review is a deeply flawed concept. For some reason, Americans genuinely believe it is their sacred civic duty to log onto the internet and write a sweeping 2,000-word essay absolutely demolishing a local small business just because their morning latte foam was slightly asymmetrical. They genuinely think they are providing a polite, helpful warning to the community. In reality, it is nothing more than a grown adult throwing a massive, highly public temper tantrum from the safety of their couch, completely disguised as a public service. 30. Try bravely admitting in a crowded room that you have not watched the absolute latest hit streaming television show. If you do this in America, the group will instantly stop talking and stare at you with the exact same mixture of profound pity and absolute horror they would reserve for a grown man claiming he has never heard of electricity. Watching Netflix is no longer just a fun way to relate to people. It has fully mutated into a mandatory high-stakes cultural literacy test, and buddy, you just failed it miserably in front of everyone. 31. The incredibly silent, highly toxic suburban warfare known as competitive lawn care is an American staple. Having a perfectly manicured, unnaturally bright green lawn during a drought is almost never about personal enjoyment. It is essentially a giant, passive-aggressive billboard aimed directly at your neighbor's living room window. It is a pristine, chemically treated monument to your absolute financial and domestic superiority. People think a nice yard is just a polite gift to the neighborhood. But it is really a quiet declaration of absolute dominance, fought exclusively with heavy fertilizers and timed sprinkler systems. 32. Imagine a complete stranger clumsily bumping into you at the supermarket, and your immediate knee-jerk reaction is to loudly say you are sorry. It is a wonderfully bizarre American reflex to actually apologize for the high crime of merely existing in someone else's physical path. We have become so deeply conditioned to perform this specific brand of submissive politeness that it is practically guaranteed we will eventually go home, stub our toe hard on our own living room coffee table, and instinctively whisper a genuine apology directly to the piece of wooden furniture. 33. Saying a quick thank you at a fast food drive-thru window, only to have the exhausted teenage employee respond with a completely robotic, corporate-mandated, "My pleasure," is deeply unsettling. Let us be entirely real here, Kevin. It was absolutely not your profound pleasure. You just spent 8 grueling hours dealing with screaming toddlers and incredibly angry adults fighting over cold French fries. Forcing minimum wage workers to politely pretend that serving chicken nuggets brings them immense spiritual joy is not actually good customer service. It is just a deeply weird script pulled straight from a dystopian corporate manual. 34. Americans have a uniquely baffling habit of politely describing physical distance exclusively in units of time. If you ask a local, "How far is it to the big city?" they will casually respond, "Oh, it is about 45 minutes depending on the highway traffic." Logically speaking, this is completely useless scientific information, unless you also happen to know their exact driving speed, the vehicle type, and the local speed limits. Yet, across the country, this is considered a perfectly normal, deeply helpful answer. It is essentially geographical navigation based entirely on pure, localized vibes. 35. The fierce obsession with maintaining a massive, invisible 6-foot personal bubble while standing in a quiet grocery store checkout line is wild. Americans will politely but firmly guard this empty space like it is a sacred, ancient burial ground. However, these exact same people will then immediately walk outside and willingly cram themselves onto a heavily crowded subway car, literally breathing hot air down a complete stranger's neck without a second thought. The concept of polite personal space in this country operates on a level of situational logic that is, quite frankly, totally non-existent. 36. Starting a conversation by slowly approaching someone and deploying the excruciatingly annoying phrase, "Can I ask you a question?" is mind-boggling. Think about this for a second. You are literally already doing it. Asking for permission to ask a question is not actually an example of you being a highly polite, respectful person. It is a completely bizarre, time-wasting verbal preamble that serves absolutely no purpose other than building totally unnecessary, dramatic suspense for a question that is probably going to be completely mundane, like asking if anyone has seen the TV remote. 37. Beware the classic conversational one-upper who genuinely thinks they are being wonderfully empathetic. You briefly mention that you are suffering from a bad winter cold, and they immediately lean in to excitedly tell you about the horrific time they caught double pneumonia and practically died in a foreign hospital. Americans think this is a polite way to relate to your daily struggles. In reality, every single story you tell is just a convenient launching pad for their vastly bigger, better, or more tragic saga. It turns friendly conversations into a weird, depressing competition. 38. Boldly insisting on using your phone's external speaker in a crowded public space is a modern etiquette nightmare. A massive chunk of Americans have collectively decided that basic headphones are completely optional. Instead, they politely treat the entire frozen foods aisle to a highly distorted, one-sided conversation about their cousin's extremely messy divorce. To them, this is not seen as rude or horribly invasive. They legitimately just consider it a brilliant display of modern multitasking, flawlessly executed in the absolute most obnoxious, inescapable way humanly possible for everyone else trapped in the store. 39. Notice that agonizingly slow, incredibly awkward backward shuffle Americans use when they are absolutely desperate to end a casual conversation. Instead of just offering a polite, firm goodbye and turning around like a normal adult, they will just start quietly inching away while still maintaining eye contact and talking. They will gradually increase the physical distance between you until they are literally shouting across a Target parking lot and can finally make a clean break. It is not an actual exit strategy. It is essentially a live-action human fade-out effect born entirely out of social anxiety. 40. When an American manager desperately needs to give an employee some harsh criticism, corporate manners legally demand they first swaddle the insult in 2 thick layers of cheap, totally insincere praise. It is widely known as the famous compliment sandwich, and it is a wildly dumb tactic that just leaves absolutely everyone involved feeling deeply confused. The poor person walks away from the meeting blinking rapidly, thinking to themselves, "All right, so you really love my new shoes and my punctuality, but you also think I am completely, hopelessly incompetent at my actual job?" 41. Sending out mundane corporate emails, heavily seasoned with a truly psychotic, unhinged number of exclamation points, is the new normal. To a modern American office worker, an email ending with a simple, grammatically correct period is basically viewed as a vicious declaration of war. It is instantly perceived as cold, angry, and highly aggressive. So, in order to appear wonderfully polite and friendly, everyday professional communication now closely resembles a frantic ransom note, excitedly written by a caffeinated high school cheerleader. It is absolutely exhausting to read on a Monday morning. 42. Aggressively using a high-pitched baby voice to speak to other people's random pets is a strange phenomenon. A fully grown mortgage-paying adult will spot a stranger's golden retriever on the sidewalk, and their voice will instantly jump 3 octaves to shriek, "Who is a good whittle boy?" Americans view this as a charming, polite way to greet an animal. The dog, however, completely lacks the brain capacity to understand English, and meanwhile, every other adult human standing in the immediate vicinity is now experiencing a profound, involuntary full-body cringe at the display. 43. You have exactly 15 seconds after shaking hands with a brand new American acquaintance before they confidently hit you with the ultimate question. So, what do you do for a living? People pretend this is just polite, friendly small talk about your daily passions. Do not be completely fooled. It is basically a conversational X-ray machine. It is specifically designed to immediately calculate your rough annual income and social status, so they can accurately determine exactly how much respect they are actually required to show you for the rest of the boring evening. 44. Delivering a massive, highly emotional life story dump right onto your poor hairstylist or local barber is wildly common. Americans see a captive, polite audience holding a pair of very sharp scissors and instantly decide it is the absolute perfect time for an unsolicited, feature-length autobiography about their recent divorce. This is not polite small talk or sweet community building. It is a completely non-consensual therapy session where the highly underpaid therapist is heavily armed with blades and just desperately trying to avoid accidentally cutting a chunk of your ear off while you cry. 45. Customizing a simple restaurant menu item until it is completely unrecognizable to the chef who originally invented it is a bizarre flex. This is not ordering dinner. This is issuing a strict list of ransom demands. They will casually say, "I will take the basic chicken salad, but absolutely no nuts. Put the dressing in a separate bowl, add fresh avocado, substitute kale for the lettuce, and grill the chicken extra crispy." Americans genuinely believe paying for food gives them permission to politely co-direct a highly stressful culinary hostage situation right at the table. 46. Bringing a cheap, dusty bottle of wine to a dinner party as a polite gesture, completely ignoring it, and then proceeding to relentlessly drink all of the host's top-shelf liquor instead. People treat that $10 bottle of generic Cabernet like an unlimited entry ticket to an open bar. You handed over the absolute bare minimum required by society at the front door, which somehow makes you feel completely justified in draining a bottle of whiskey that costs more than your monthly car payment. 47. Willingly allowing yourself to be forced into playing incredibly bizarre, deeply humiliating baby shower games is a strange social contract. Every adult in the living room has to aggressively pretend they are having the absolute time of their lives while sniffing and guessing which brand of melted chocolate candy bar is currently smeared inside a clean baby diaper. It is viewed as polite participation, but it is really a mandatory weekend ritual of feigned enthusiasm for disgusting group activities that would otherwise be legally classified as a very weird, highly specific form of psychological torture. 48. We all know that incredibly annoying person who spends 10 minutes color coordinating their small living room bookshelf and then loudly declares to the room, "Ugh, I am just so incredibly OCD." Americans legitimately use this phrase, thinking it highlights a cute, quirky, and highly organized personality trait. In reality, it is a way of completely minimizing a deeply debilitating mental anxiety disorder and turning it into a smug little humble brag about being moderately neat. It is easily one of the absolute most tone-deaf and totally ignorant forms of fake politeness currently out there. 49. Taking a very simple piece of medical news and actively turning it into a massive environmental hazard is otherwise known as the modern American gender reveal party. Couples now genuinely consider it incredibly polite and socially necessary to force their extended family to gather in a dry field to celebrate an unborn fetus by detonating massive colored smoke bombs. These stunts routinely spark thousands of acres of raging forest fires. It is the breathtaking display of highly explosive, completely self-absorbed etiquette where destroying nature is apparently just part of the fun weekend celebration. 50. The deeply agonizing, totally unnecessary dance of the rural four-way stop sign is enough to drive anyone insane. Two cars arrive at the exact same millisecond, and instead of just following basic, logical traffic laws, both drivers begin frantically and aggressively waving the other one through the intersection. You go, "No, I insist, you go." This ridiculous standoff can easily go on for an eternity. It creates a massive, dangerous traffic jam caused entirely by a terminal overdose of politeness. It is the absolute ultimate proof that having good intentions can make you look undeniably dumb. I guarantee you aggressively do at least half of these things and think you're an absolute saint for it. Go ahead, drop a comment defending your weird fake invites or your insane email exclamation points. Prove me wrong. If you survive this list without getting completely offended and calling the manager, hit the like button and subscribe for more brutal truths.